So do you want to start by going and reading a couple of the lines for us, Radhika?
Sure. So I'm going to read a paragraph from the first chapter. A daughter is special. My dear daughter Millie, may you always be happy. It's your birthday today. You are 25 years old now, but you are far away from me at this moment, across 7 seas in another country. Memories from the time of your birth have come alive. You were born after 3 brothers. The truth is that I was not happy when I learned that I was pregnant for the 4th time. Your 3rd brother was already 6 years old. I was 32 years old. I was embarrassed as well. But what did my unhappiness and embarrassment have to do with your birth? You were meant for this world. God had chosen my womb for you. This was my destiny and yours. I erased the negative thoughts from my mind and replaced them with happy ones. That happy mind gave rise to a desire. I did not have a daughter. My mother had lamented after the birth of my 3rd son. My daughter does not have a daughter. After 2 sons, a girl would have lit up the house with joy.
Wow. That was beautiful. That was really beautiful. And thank you for reading that.
You are welcome.
It's such a great way to start our podcast. So thank you. Thank you for that. And why don't we just take a moment to introduce yourselves and tell our listeners a little bit about why they just got to listen to that beautiful passage.
Yeah, I'll start. My name is Meenakshi Sinha. In the book, I'm called Millie, as I'm known to all my close family and friends. We live in Kirkland, Washington. We have been here for about 8 years. I'm an economist by training and worked as an economist for several years before becoming an artist. I have been an artist for the last 6, 7 years. I paint and auction my paintings to raise funds for Seattle area nonprofits. And this is Radhika. She is 11 years old. She's my only daughter. We are getting ready for middle school for Radhika, which starts next week. We are excited and a bit nervous. How are you feeling?
Yeah, excited and a bit nervous.
And you'll be in what grade?
6th.
6th. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Thank you so much. And listeners, we'll have a link to some of Millie's art in our show notes so that you can check it out. It's beautiful, so vibrant and so colorful. So it's just wonderful.
Yeah. So this book is called A Daughter is Special. I translated, this was my mom's book in Hindi. This was, the Hindi version is called Bitiya Hai Vishesh, which translates into A Daughter is Special in English. So when I came to America, when I was 22 years old, I came to Cornell University for a PhD. When I turned 25, a few years later, she started writing letters to me. It started with the first letter on my 25th birthday, and she decided to get it published in a magazine in India. And the reason being that she thought that the message was important enough that it should not be confined to, should have a wider audience than just me. It was addressed to daughters of a whole generation and not just her own daughter. Mm. So she decided to continue that series. It started with that first chapter, and every month after that, a letter was published, which was actually addressed to me, but it was an open letter. And we have a collection of 25 stories, which were then collected and compiled into a book that got published. My mother passed away suddenly from a heart attack in November of 2020. When I was grieving, I was in shock. I wanted somehow to live through my mother's memory, still be close to her. I missed out on the opportunity to go visit her in her last days. I couldn't see her, touch her, talk to her. So I really was trying to find a way to cope with that loss, that and cope with that, the grief that I was going through. And I was just came through this book. I don't know how, but I kind of started flipping through it and realized that as I started reading through the letters, they kind of felt to me like my mom was speaking to me.
Mm-hmm.
I could hear her voice, and that was a connection, a closeness that I felt with her without her physical presence being here on earth. And I felt like this was precious, and I wanted to spend some time with the letters, but also translate them into English along the way so that Radhika would have access to them. She reads a bit of Hindi, but my mom's Hindi was a little bit hard to read on a higher level. So I wanted her to have access to the letters, her to know what it was like, what my childhood was like, and our family upbringing was like. And that became a project that helped me through my grief and my pain during the first year of our loss. And so I decided to publish this book on her first death anniversary, which was in 2021, to just mark that as my tribute to the life that my mom gave me and all these beautiful letters that she wrote to me.
Yeah. So, Radhika, what do you think of the letters that your grandma wrote?
I find them both interesting and inspiring. I find them interesting because it talks about my mom's childhood and how she was like and how they celebrated different traditions and festivities.
Mm-hmm.
I find them inspiring because it inspires me to write letters to my future family.
Yeah.
And because mom gets to flip through this book and read how her childhood was like.
Yeah.
So I want my daughter or son to
Or both.
to see and read how it was like in their childhood.
Yeah. Very different, I think, than your childhood. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there a favorite letter that you have?
Yeah, I read one recently on Wednesday. It's about Rakhi. Rakhi is a tradition that symbolizes that the caring of the brothers and the sisters.
Mm.
So the brother will take care of the sister her entire life.
Mm.
And the same thing for the sister.
I like that. Very, very nice. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us for this part of the episode. We really appreciate it. So
you are welcome.
And we'll be in touch with you soon. Okay, sweetie. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So the title of the book and that you put, and also, seemed to put all the letters together, and it was so beautiful the way that Radhika talked about it, that a daughter is special. And why would your mom, what does your mom go on to say about that?
Yeah, so she believed that daughters were special, women were special. Women even traditionally in Indian culture and history, in our mythology, they have a special role, a special significance, a stature. Women are prayed to as goddesses. They are sources of power, sources of wisdom, knowledge, strength. It has been taught to us. We have grown up with stories of strong Indian women. And she took a lot of inspiration from those, as well as I think from her life in general, where she grew up in a village surrounded in a joint family system. She saw women of different kinds, different generations, women who were at home or women who were in different careers. She worked in so many different fields. She was an author, she was in politics, she
Right.
was in public work and social work. In all her fields, she interacted with so many women. And I think that also being an author, as a storyteller, she was a very keen observer of human beings and their behavior, their lives. From all her experiences and her observations, I think she was able to gather that women are so important and so perceptive. They have this emotional maturity that comes from just being a woman, their personal growth and their career. At the same time, they don't lose sight of how important it is to care for their families and people around them, also their employees. So she saw women from this very sort of a vantage point of having these superior qualities that made them a natural leader, a natural caretaker of people around them.
In one of her letters, she talks about celebrating milestones.
Yes.
And that I thought was, I think, an important message. Can you talk a little bit more about what you think she was saying about that?
Yeah, of course. So my mom was all about celebrations. So whether small celebrations or big celebrations, she would sometimes just find an excuse to celebrate. She was full of life and just loved to find joy and create joy. But she also believed in celebrating small personal achievements and accomplishments. For example, you wake up in the morning, you make your bed, makes you feel accomplished, makes you get a head start on your, feels like you've done, one thing is checked off of the list and you're ready for the next. She would get up in the morning and get ready, whether or not she had to go to work that day or she had to. There was never a point that she would just be in her PJs all day long. She was of that kind where she had to wake up, get ready, get dressed, and be ready to face the day. So she considered that as a small accomplishment that, okay, now I'm ready. And, now I'm going to take care of the things that are on my list.
Yeah.
There was a time when I was going through, hard time emotionally, and she was there with me. She came to spend a week with me, and she would tell me, "Oh, you're feeling down? Just go and clean the kitchen. Go and tidy up your room. Go and take care of, declutter a closet or something." And then she would ask me, "How does that feel? Do you feel better now?" And I did, because to her, it was like, do something, feel good about yourself, and then it'll help you, put you in a positive mindset to tackle the next thing in your life.
Yeah.
So, and of course, these were small day-to-day activities, but she also placed big importance on celebrating traditions, our festivals, our holidays.
Yeah.
And to the best of your abilities. And we try to do that here, because now we have to combine all our Indian traditions and the American traditions. So we're kind of trying to find a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. There was this beautiful thing in one of her letters, and I just want to read it for our listeners. In India, a person's life is knitted with a yarn of relationships, a yarn that has many colors and many levels of warmth. I just thought that was so beautiful. What do you think about that point that she's talking about in terms of relationships and how that served her and wants it to serve you?
Definitely. That was something that she placed a lot of importance on: human connections, relations that we are born with, and relations that we make as friends or as people who are not our blood relatives, but over time, through our work and through different activities, they become friends. She placed a lot of importance on the role that each individual that you connect with, the role that they play in your success and your well-being, and the role that you play. It's a two-way street. You give or to give and take. She invested a lot in our immediate family, our extended family. She cared about everyone, and she tried to make sure, to the best of her abilities, that everyone was happy and healthy and taken care of, despite her busy schedule and all the 100 things that she had on her list every day. She made sure that she would ask about whether I had my meals or not, whether my family, everyone. She cared about us, and she cared about everyone that was around her. What she felt was that we feel these relationships give us a lot of energy, they give us a lot of strength, they give us a lot of support, and we have to lean on these relationships that we invest in to help us in times that we need their help. So it was this fabric of social network that we have in India, but also here. I see that everywhere around us, is that we lean on support, we build a community. So if I need childcare sometime, I can ask a neighbor or I can ask my brother. So it's always there. So, and she needed a lot of that because she was a career woman growing up in a traditional, living in a traditional society where there were expectations on her about taking care of her extended family, of her in-laws. And she managed all that beautifully because she thought she placed a lot of importance on that.
Yeah.
And to me, also, her advice, and I mean, she was a living example of how to manage. Like, of course, it's stressful. It's not without stress that you have a very demanding career, at the same time the needs of your family. And but she thought that if you invest enough, then you're going to get back, and you're going to have support, you're going to have well-wishers and people who send you positive energy, and all this is very much required for you to grow and be happy in your life. Her father was a very strong supporter of girls getting educated. And this was at a time when she was born in 1942. This was not a time when a lot of girls, especially in Indian villages, that went to school. But my grandfather decided to put her into a boarding school nonetheless. And, she was 8 when she went, and he really wanted to make sure she got a good education. He was very proud of her. And throughout her life, she kept telling me and telling people around her that a lot of things that she did was they were just to make her dad happy, because she wanted to get her master's degree because, oh, my dad would be very happy if I do that. She wanted to become a lecturer because, oh, my dad would be very happy. And she said it's not a wrong a goal to have, to just, if you are driven by making someone happy, and that drives you in your career or in any personal growth, then there's nothing wrong with that. And she gave a lot of credit to her own dad for her growth. She also gave a lot of credit to my dad, and which was true, because again, coming from a very traditional background in society, despite that, my father was a big supporter of her in terms of rising in her career and being out there. It was not an easy time for women to be in Indian politics and to become an author. I mean, she had a multifaceted career, and she would not have been able to accomplish so much without the support of my father.
Yeah.
So she gave those examples of her father, of my father, even my sister-in-law. She relied on her a lot. When she got married, I was only in 8th grade. So she relied on her to, have kind of be my childcare support, or like her childcare support. So, and she gave them credit all the time. So that, oh, without you, I wouldn't have been able to go attend this meeting or go do that or go to this conference. So she nurtured these relationships to basically to her advantage. And she said that this is how the fabric of life works. You help each other out and you rely on them to be your support and you help them.
Yeah. So one of the things that she does bring up, which I think is important about resiliency, and that is, she had moments of grief and how to deal with them and how they make you stronger. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you think she was trying to tell all of us about that?
Yeah. So in her life, there was a lot of grief. There was a time period for 12 years when our family dealt with a very went through a very hard phase. I had a brother who was, who was born before me, 6 years older to me. When he was around 6 years old, when I was born, he got diagnosed with muscular dystrophy. And there was, to this date, there is no cure for muscular dystrophy. And my parents, our whole family spent a lot of energy and time trying to find a cure, trying to, go to places, different doctors and different cities, trying to just find something that would help him. And sadly, nothing existed. So all there was to do was to just wait and see if anything would happen. At some point, they had to give up and just kind of realize that there will not be a cure for his situation. So caring for him became the job for our whole family. He was basically bedridden, couldn't really do anything by himself. So even lifting a book or reading or his day-to-day activities, he was completely dependent on us. So for a mother to go through such a hard thing for a child, to have a child who is not 100%, I mean, not even 100%, and he was completely bedridden. So it was a very hard thing for her to go through, to first accept the fact that there was no cure for his situation, and then he passed away when he was 18. So we all suffered through that loss. She told me a few times that of course, she went through a lot of grief and sadness and depression. Even she came to a point where she wanted to end her life, and she wanted to just, that was an easy way out. She didn't want to deal with it. She couldn't deal with it. And then she thought about that. She came to a point where she said, I'm at a point in my life where I can choose to end it, or I can choose to try to live with it in a more positive way. And I can gain strength from it and convert that into a source of energy for me. I think it was around that time that she wrote her first novel, and the storyline was based on a girl who is she's in an accident and she loses her feet, and then but she still kind of gets over that, and she goes to a place in India where she gets prosthetics made, and she becomes a famous dancer. So I think that story kind of it symbolizes what she drew from that incident and what she wanted to convert that into. That there is an accident, is you go through a hard phase in your life, and how do you convert that to the extent possible into something positive. So she made a conscious decision to try to be happy. Part of that was because of me, because I was still very small and impressionable. So she wanted me to have a happy upbringing. And part of it was just for herself. She decided to do something meaningful with her life, and she achieved so much more. I wrote a blog about that once. Sometimes a life begins at 40. And for her, that was true. Before that, yes, I mean, she had all the good foundation, a lot of support, but maybe not as much ambition or the drive to, proceed with your career with, renewed energy as she did, especially after that incident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she started writing you. Were these, I just have to ask a couple of questions here. So the letters that you got, were they handwritten or were they, typed on a computer and sent to you?
I got the type letter.
Type
The
letter.
first one, yeah, I think the first one I got handwritten, and I'm so bad that I don't know where it is because at that time I was in my 20s. I didn't realize the significance of receiving a letter from your mother. So I probably just tossed it away. But
Yeah.
the later letters were all typed and sent.
So are you going to have a tradition like that somehow with Radhika, or how are you going to invent a new way of carrying on?
Well, this is one way of carrying on. The first step was to translate my mom's writings. So
Right.
now she knows what she thought and how she thought about life and importance of traditions and family. I haven't really given a thought to it, but I'm probably going to start a series just to write, just type out letters. Now it's much more easier. I can just start typing out maybe at least once a year on her birthdays. I can write a letter and have her read them on her birthday as well. I wrote a few when she was young as part of my blog on different topics, not really thinking so much about the letters from my mom at that time. But I feel like the art of writing a letters it brings out something in you that's much more personal, and it lets you speak from the heart. Because if I'm addressing a letter to her versus just writing a blog for the public to read, I don't think that I'll have the same amount of emotion and honesty in it as I would if I was writing it to my daughter.
Yeah.
So I think I might start it, but I haven't really given a lot of thought to it.
When I think about letters, I think about that intimacy and that way of speaking with somebody. And it can be captured, I think, it doesn't have to be handwritten. I mean, our kids are not having classes any longer in penmanship. It's going to be it's good. And in college, I had to give half of my class pens because they don't walk around with them. They, it's like they don't write. So, and I wonder, are we losing something as a form of expression, or is it just a matter of the content? Like, however that content gets communicated, whether it's visually or a written or verbal. I mean, our podcast can be very intimate at times.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think that it's up to people's comfort levels. If writing by hand becomes, it's hard for you, then choose a method that works for you. Choose a method that's easy on you. Because the most important thing is to communicate, and not so much on, yes, of course, if you can write by hand, it will be very special, and it has your special mark on it. But if that's too intimidating, or if it's not a mode you prefer, then just typing out your letters on or for some people it may not even be words. For some people it may be pictures or photographs or paintings. And for me, maybe it'll be paintings. I don't know, because the way we express ourselves varies a lot from people to people. But I do agree that there is something to be said about preserving our family's words, whether it's written down by hand or it's written down by electronically. Because when I read these letters, as I said before, when I read my mom's letters, although they are in print, I can actually hear her voice.
Yeah.
Because I know that these are the things she said. And so it brings a different kind of closeness in my mind, because they are not just words that I'm reading, and they're actually, I can hear her, I can kind of see her expression sometimes as she would be saying those words. So it's important to do something, whether or how you do it, it's up to you, but try to preserve the words somehow and to pass them down. And stories, especially, we are in our day-to-day lives, there are so many stories, and I feel like it's really important to preserve them and pass them down the generations. I'm very lucky that we have this treasure of stories, because if there's any festival, like there was Raksha Bandhan or Rakhi a few days ago, which celebrates the relationship between brothers and sisters. And I told Radhika, hey, I remember there's a chapter on that in the book. Would you go and read that? Because it tells you about what my first Rakhi was when I was an infant. So she was thrilled she enjoyed that story a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel like even day-to-day incidents of just describe what was your first Halloween like. How did you feel? And I think your grandchildren are going to really enjoy reading that.
Yeah, they
Someday.
never imagine us being
Yeah.
whatever age they are. You know,
Yes.
like, oh, you were never 11, Mom. You were,
Yeah.
you know. So this is really very good. I think is there anything else that you'd like to tell the listeners about the book, or about anything we didn't cover yet?
I'm thinking, but I think it's good to, I think I'm just going to re-emphasize that it's important to first of all preserve your legacy, your heritage, whatever you want that to be, and pass it down in some form or the other. This was not something that I thought much about when my parents were around, but now that they are not, and my daughter is growing up in a country that is different from where I came from, I feel that this book has become a very important legacy for our family, that it tells her a lot about my culture, my upbringing. So anything that we can do, we all have so many interesting people in our families, interesting stories and heritage. So whatever we can do to preserve and pass it on, we should try and do it.
That's a great place to end today's episode. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. I know that our listeners are probably thinking of ways that they might come up with to pass those stories on. So, how can they follow you and see your great artwork?
Oh, yeah. So I am on Facebook. I have a page. It's called The Giving Canvas. This is a canvas that I paint and then I sell or auction it to benefit nonprofits that are here in the Seattle area. If you just search for The Giving Canvas on Facebook, it should show up as a page, and then you can follow.
Great. All right. I think that's it.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. It was really nice talking to you, connecting with you.
Absolutely.
And we hope to keep in touch.
Shout out to Razi. Thank you for connecting us.
Yes.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye,
Thank you.
listeners.